This podcast is brought to you by eBizRadio, the place to go if you want to know about the world of business. For daily podcast and article uploads, go to eBizradio.com or follow us on Twitter at eBizRadio Global. My name is Nick Snow, and joining me for an edition of eBizWise is Muggie van Staden from Obsidian Systems. Muggie, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to me again here on eBiz. We're chatting about Obsidian and your partnership with Hortonworks. Of course, Obsidian, you folks are open source solutions experts, and Hortonworks are data specialists. So once again, welcome to the show, and please would you go into a little bit of detail and explain to us the partnership and how are you as companies going to benefit from each other?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be on the show again. So just a little bit of background. Hortonworks is one of the enterprise open source providers of a technology called Hadoop, which there are quite a few flavors of. So just like in the Linux world, where you would get different guys building different distributions with names, the core is Linux. The same in the big data world. That Hadoop is the core open source technology that's built by the community. And then you have different enterprise vendors that then take that, add their spice to the mix, and ultimately provide an enterprise offering to customers. So our partnership specifically is around reselling the subscriptions for enterprise Hortonworks. And then we're in the process of becoming the Hortonworks training partner, and we already have deployed a few Hortonworks instances throughout South Africa. So our customer base has already sprung up quite quickly, and more customers are starting to look at the whole concept of big data. What does it mean, and what can you do with it? So we're very, very excited to bring the Hortonworks stack to the South African market.
Wonderful. So in layman's terms, explain to us the concept of big data and why it is so important, because I know industry is focusing heavily on it at the moment, and many companies are using it to fine-tune their outputs, especially when it comes to their products or services.
Yeah. Big data, it's just a case of, there's a data explosion throughout the world. The amount of data as well as where we get data from is growing exponentially. If you think of the concepts of the Internet of Things, more and more things are Internet aware, strange things like fridges and TVs, etc., just as a few silly examples. But the point is, as businesses, they have a lot more data input than what we had, say, 10, 20 years ago. So that's number one. There's more things giving you data. And also just the sheer volume of the data that we have on our customers, etc., has also grown a lot. So we have lots of disparate data, all out of different systems, but ultimately they're somehow connected. And this is what businesses are starting to realize. How do we, number one, store all of this data? And then secondly, how do we get information, valuable information out of it? It's great to have all of this data, but ultimately you want to use it for something. And this is the whole concept of big data, is where to store this so that it's available. We can get to it in a month or three's time. But more importantly, how do we actually analyze it fast enough that the information that we get out of it is still valuable?
Yes.
And that's what Hortonworks ultimately does. So we have customers that are using the technology to potentially replace their existing data warehouses, just because Hadoop and Hortonworks on commodity hardware gives you a cheaper, better value solution than traditional big SAN storage.
Yes.
So we have a few customers that are using it just for that. And then once they've done that, they are now starting to put some business intelligence on top of that, having the ability to, now we have this data. We know there's multiple copies of it because that's the principle behind Hadoop. It makes multiple copies of the data across your cluster. So if you lose a hard drive or a node, you're not losing any of your data. But now it's there, and with the cluster, you have the ability to fairly quickly analyze the data. So typically where things would take weeks, it now takes hours, sometimes minutes and seconds. Because, face it, we live in a world today where to figure out what we did last month is almost too late for a business.
Yes.
You kind of need to know what happened yesterday, and in some cases, what's happening in real time within my organization. And this is what Hadoop and Hortonworks ultimately allows businesses to do.
Wonderful. And I suppose your ultimate aim is to say, well, if we know what's happening right this second, right now, through active real-time data collection and interpretation, you can almost more effectively plan ahead. So instead of looking back and saying, well, this is what is happening, or this is what happened, or this is how we must go forward, it's like, oh, we see this happening right now, which is why we must change what we're going to do tomorrow.
Absolutely. It's all about business awareness and business agility, and the technology definitely gives customers that edge. If you know what's happening, you can make the necessary move to beat your competitors or to ultimately just service your customers better.
Yes, absolutely. Now, that's a lovely way for this conversation to go, because obviously we know the benefit for business. More data, more interpretation means better business practice and obviously a better product or service. Now, that is obviously the most basic benefit for the consumer itself. But now, for most consumers, what are they going to gain out of this partnership in terms of the data that you're going to collect for business?
We will hopefully assist customers that are interested in going to big data to just help them understand what it can give them. And then we help architect the solutions for them. We can help deploy it. We provide training for their staff, access to enterprise subscriptions, and then we ultimately maintain the clusters for the customers that don't have the in-house knowledge.
Yes.
So that's how we assist businesses to start on their own big data path. And ultimately, we hope that by doing that, their customers and end users at the end experience a better experience from those businesses that we assist.
Absolutely. So we all do want that. The end experience, the customer centricity. Are we focused on the consumer? Are we doing a good job for them? Because obviously, if you're not doing it, they're going to move on to a different brand, someone who interprets their needs better and responds in a better time frame.
Absolutely.
So, of course, tell us about some upcoming projects that you guys may have in the pipeline. I imagine we are at the very beginning of this year, 2015. Now, 2014 was very interesting. The economy went through a bit of a loop-de-loop, but we seem to be clawing our way back slowly and are dealing with the abnormality of doing business in South Africa. So, these obviously obstacles to you. How are you guys going to go forward with these obstacles to better advise business to do business in South Africa?
We still believe that open source is one of the key things for businesses. If we have economic pressure, businesses are always willing to look at more value for money alternatives, and that's what we do ultimately. The enterprise open source stack and solutions that we assist customers with are typically a lot cheaper than the proprietary alternatives, and we're definitely seeing that. Guys that have traditionally not been willing to even consider open source solutions are now talking to us to say, great stuff, you saved lots of other guys money and didn't put any risk into their business, and we're starting to assist them there. We're very excited about the year ahead, and we believe that big data, and specifically Hortonworks, is going to be a big part of that as more and more customers realize the value of that.
So now, of course, with customers realizing value, we're obviously directing, everybody towards your business. So now, of course, customers experiencing open source, of course, we're talking about businesses experiencing the real benefit of your partnership and really interacting with it better. If a business had to come to you and say, "Listen, I'm struggling. I don't seem to know what my customers need," where would be the first point that you would start with them?
Firstly, we help them understand where their data sits and what they could potentially get out of it, and then help them put it in a platform where it's readily accessible, and so that they can learn from the data that they do have. I don't think we'll necessarily be able to assist them to answer the specific questions for their business. They know their business the best, but we can definitely help them build the platforms so that if they have the questions, they can at least get the right answers out of it.
And then at the end of the day, I imagine you're going to want to strengthen the economy. Now, I imagine you got some numbers behind these type of partnerships, and you know the true value of what it can do. When it comes to growing business, growing the economy, what does big data really do?
Hopefully it will save businesses money on technology stacks. Your big banks, telcos, retailers, if they start using data instead of traditional storage, instead of traditional BI, they will hopefully save a lot of money, and hopefully the savings will go back into stimulating the economy in other ways. It's all bought through local vendors, growing local skills and small open source companies that can assist them. And hopefully as they, like I said, save money, they will be willing and able to plow that into other areas that will ultimately grow the economy for everybody.
Absolutely. Now, going forward, of course, businesses know what they should be doing, but why do you think the majority of businesses, from the businesses that do fail, what do you think that not analyzing data has been a major component, or do you think it is still something that is a minor, specifically in South African business?
It's minor. To be honest, we've been working with Hadoop for 2-3 years, and the first 2 years was really just educating the market. Most people, when we said Hadoop, had no idea what we were talking about. So and now we suddenly have quite a few customers that are busy with production environments. Some are pitching, and more are saying, "Come and tell us more." So there's definitely been an awakening around big data and what it can do for customers. Most big businesses have some form of data warehouse and some form of business intelligence. And what Hadoop and big data can do for them is just those concepts are a lot better, quicker, faster, cheaper. And it gives them the ability to do more with their data. And we definitely have an awakening around that. So I think in a year or two, most of the big telcos, retailers, and banks will have big data platforms up and running, and hopefully we'll start seeing as consumers the value of all of that.
Absolutely. That would be the end result. That would be most ideal. And of course, we want business to get bigger and better and stronger because, of course, we need GDP because that's how we create jobs. So it's a lovely circle that you've created, and it's definitely going to be beneficial for everyone involved. The final question I really have to ask you is if people want to get in touch with you, if business wants to find you and find out more about what you can do for them, how do they get in contact with you?
The easiest is probably via our website, just www.obsidian.co.za, and they're welcome to make contact via that. Otherwise, just email sales@obsidian.co.za. I'm on most social platforms. I'm sure they can track me down as well, and they're welcome to contact me directly, and we'll gladly go and visit them.
Absolutely wonderful. So if there is business eBiz listeners out there, you know what to do. You know how to make your business work in 2015. Muggie, thank you very much for joining me once again for this edition of eBiz Wires and chatting for me on eBizradio.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the opportunity.